Hello, good morning, good afternoon, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us in the Australian Journal for Environmental Education special issue launch. Today we are launching our fabulous, most recent special issue called Beyond the Metacrisis, Educating for the Future World to Come. As we get going, I'd like to begin with our AJEE Acknowledgement of Country. So the Australian Journal for Environmental Education acknowledges First Nations people across the globe as the traditional custodians of the lands, skies, and waterways on which we gather today. We respect Indigenous scholars and encourage and value their contribution in our journal and participation in our community. We honour Australian Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first educators and caretakers whose deep knowledge and connection to country continues to guide us in our lives and work. We pay our deep respects to elders past and present and to emerging leaders across the continent. We acknowledge that country is a teacher who shares generously so we all may learn. As we gather to connect, learn, and share, may we each listen deeply to and with country and awaken our shared responsibility to care for it and for each other now and into the future. So please join me by sharing your country and pay respect to your First Nations peoples in the chat. It's really a lovely way for us to make community by acknowledging our locatedness and our placed-basedness, if you forgive me that word. My name is Peter White. I'm the editor-in-chief of AJEE, and I've got a few other acknowledgements for today. First of all, I'd like to start by acknowledging the AJEE editorial executive and the board. We thank them for their voluntary commitment to our community and journal practices. And our journal is 42 years old. It's actually one of the oldest journals in our field. I'd like to also acknowledge our host organisation, the Australian Association for Environmental Education, celebrating 47 years of operation across Australia, which is an incredible history. We'd like to share that A Squared E Squared, as we lovingly call it, is hosting the World Environmental Education Congress in Perth in September this year. So if you've have you considered coming along? I hope so. A Squared E Squared is offering you an opportunity to receive a small discount for coming along. In fact, it's not that small, it's 20% if you're an A Squared E Squared member. So if that interests you, I've just popped a link in the chat and you might like to take a read and have a look at that. I'm also going to pop a link in the chat that will take you to the call for abstracts for week, as we again lovingly call it. And the abstracts close around the 30th of April. So anytime before then you can put a submission in, but the final closure is then. And if you would like to know a little more about A Squared E Squared and the amazing things that we do across Australia, please take a look at the final link in the chat. Then my next acknowledgement is to our publisher. We publish with Cambridge University Press, and they are really an incredible organisation to work with. So I'm very pleased to acknowledge that. And because of our work with them, we are a gold open access journal. We are leading our field through these challenging times through education, and I think this special issue speaks to that. AJEE publishes 5 issues a year, all with open access. We host special issues with open calls that provide leadership to our field and beyond. We also publish special focus articles that curate an invited set of articles about a specific idea. We publish theses synopsis that introduce new researchers to our community, and we also publish reviews on literature, film, reports, etc., as they showcase important work across our field. But today we're celebrating our latest special issue, Beyond the Metacrisis, Educating for the Future World to Come. And it is my great pleasure, in fact, to introduce to you the guest editors of this special issue, Ruth Irwin. Hello, Ruth. Give us a wave, thank you. And Sandra Wooltorton. Hello, Sandra. They have led this special issue to completion with resourcefulness and grace. And what a contribution it is. I absolutely encourage you to take a look. So on behalf of AJEE, A Squared, E Squared, and CUP, Cambridge University Press, gosh, all those acronyms, I thank you all to all the contributing authors for your outstanding contributions, managing the systems and processes, and hope that you're here to celebrate with us today and into the future. Together, we also want to thank all the reviewers who volunteered time and energy to ensure that these published articles are as great as they are. Reviewing is a task that takes focus and commitment and is repeated several times through the process. This volunteer work seamlessly fits into our lives, and willingly we contribute. It's this contribution that we make that grows and enriches our field. So it takes a great community to produce such important and timely work. We are a strong community of research and learning, which feels important in these challenging times. We're also a growing community, so please look out for our socials on LinkedIn and Facebook. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, I have the pleasure of sharing this first fabulous short video. Thank you very much to Ruth and Sandra, and here we go. Oh, that's tricky.
Hiya. I acknowledge Warindinjunga elders and country where I am at home in Australia's southwest. I acknowledge the vitality of rivers, estuaries, swamps, hills, coasts and oceans. I acknowledge elders, knowledge and places where you are located and commend all of us who care for these habitats. Everyone has place-based ancestors, so our capacity to deeply relate with places is innate in all of us. Most papers in this special issue celebrate place relationships for metacrisis times. And I'm Sandra Wool-Torton, and I'm part of the Noorlungu Research Institute located at the University of Notre Dame, Australia. And now over to Ruth to introduce herself.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa from the Manukau Harbour and the Waitakere Mountains in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Thank you very much, Sandra. I'm Ruth Irwin, and we are in the process of launching the Beyond the Metacrisis project. So good. It's been a long time coming, and it's been turned into a very large and somewhat unwieldy project, which we've managed to shape up, and we're very proud of it. So I'd just like to start by talking about the polycrisis. So obviously there are a whole lot of things that go into the polycrisis: climate change, extinction rates, homelessness, suicide, forever chemicals. All sorts of different crises become the polycrisis. And what we want to talk about in our project on the metacrisis is what binds these things, all these disparate issues all together in ways that have never been seen before in any previous civilization. There is something about modern industrialism, what the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, calls business as usual, which is creating all of these isms: colonialism, imperialism, capitalism, extractivism. And there's something peculiar and dark about the world today. Business as usual is failing, but we refuse to recognise its failures and distance ourselves with strongman politics and war. So in this metacrisis project, Beyond the Metacrisis, what we are looking at, what we're trying to understand is what is it about this civilization that is creating the alienation from the web of life and the more than human. And part of that comes out of modern philosophy, where there has been a dualism that has separated subject from object, mind from body, rationality from being. And this is a kind of a skepticism of empirical evidence. And what that does is it creates the conditions for an alienation from the ecosystem that then makes capitalist exploitation possible. Not only is it capitalism created a very extractivist relationship with the earth and earth systems, but economic growth is making that much faster. And we now have an acceleration since the 1950s that we've never, that the earth has never experienced before. And some of our papers have called this the Great Unraveling. So we were thinking about the metacrisis and what exactly metabolizes the metacrisis. So meta is a Greek term that means to think. It's like taking another layer above. So it's a metamorphosis, a metabolism. In the film world, it's called breaking the third wall. So, you know, you have the story, the narrative, and then suddenly the actors actually look straight at you, breaking the third wall. So this is breaking through narratives that have exhausted their use-by date. So we're no longer masking. We want to examine the metacrisis, which means examining and acknowledging how tightly we are actually interconnected with the planetary ecosystem, with our place. So this is an introduction and the launch of 23 fantastic papers on the metacrisis, beyond the metacrisis, educating for a world to come. Thanks.
Right, thank you very much, Ruth. Can you see my shared screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in front of me, I have 3 cogs on the left and a beautiful Nyungar picture on the right called Ngalak Kurutpuja, our heart country. Now, the 3 cogs on the left show the separated togetherness of mainstream society. We see that there are interconnections, but we can't understand the depth of those interconnections. The main picture shows the real serious interconnection in a Nyungar point of view, in a Nyungar worldview, where everything is deeply interconnected and cannot be separated. This beautiful art by Barbara Binder illustrates the aliveness and vitality of country. Special issues authors show how the more we think of ideas of country being alive and responsive, the more we participate with its liveliness and the more we feel it in our everyday lives. This describes the place as educator theme that weaves through many papers. We need a sense of the sacred in our lives, our places, and our communities. Valuing qualities such as belonging, knowing, and becoming guide us towards egalitarian values, expressive and kin-based ways of relating, and creative context-based learning. This movement, the metamorphosis movement, the movement for change, is in place. Young Indigenous people in New Zealand show one way, caring for all realms in land, sky, and seascapes. Groups in Australia actively work to reorient universities through Indigenous place-based knowledges. New concepts like mundification or reworlding give voice to new transitions. Simplexity means complex messages conveyed simply. Heed calls for new curricula like heat literacy. Let's face it and teach it. It's getting hotter. A Thrutopian curriculum addresses metacrisis. Let's become crack literate, using Japanese kintsugi as a way of analysing things that begin to break and gently putting them back together in ways that are stronger than they were before in our universities. There are opportunities to rethink technology using high or low energy ratings. We highly recommend you read these articles. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandra. That was really fantastic. We want to acknowledge all the really amazing people that have submitted their essays to the call for Beyond the Metacrisis, Educating for a World to Come. We had an incredible response rate from all over the world, and we've ended up with 23 fantastic papers that are a really, really high standard. So we're really delighted about that. And we've asked a handful of people to make a small film about their submission. And in the next hour or hour and a half, we're going to show a couple of those films and then have a live discussion about the films and about the Metacrisis. And then we'll break twice so that we have 3 different chats where the audience can be involved. And I would just also really like to thank Peter White, who's been the most incredible editor. It's been such a pleasure, Peter. And Sandra Walterton, oh my goodness, it has just been so nice working with you. Absolutely wonderful. So thank you so much. And yes, ahead we go. Thank you very much to all of you.
And thanks to you, Ruth, and it has been a pleasure working with you.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you very much. We are now really excited to present our first paper short film. This one, I'm just going to stop the recording as I let you know the title of this one is Education and Governance for Justice with Marawara and the Greater Good. This is presented to us by Marawara River of Life, Lachlan Carricker. Oh, I'm sorry, Sandra. And Lachlan, I apologize. And Anne Polina. Thank you. Thank you so much. We're now going to move straight on to our next short presentation and hold your thoughts and your feelings with you. We have one more and then we're going to break into a discussion opportunity. So it is with great pleasure that I now introduce Robert Stratford, Elena Levertis, I'm so sorry, Alina, and Mike Joy with their their paper called From Miserable Pedagogies to Anthropocene Intelligence for Universities in the Metacrisis.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Robert Stratford from Te Herenga Victoria University, Wellington. And on behalf of my co-authors, Eleanor Levertis, and Mike Joy, some of the young people from my own family, I want to take you on a rapid video summary journey of our recent article in the Australian Journal of Environmental Education. Our paper begins by outlining that the planet is facing an interconnected metacrisis. There are crises across our natural, political, social, and psychological ecosystems. The psychological crisis facing young people is both a part of the metacrisis and a result of the misery and uncertainty of a world of climate change, Epstein files, mass extinction, toxic social media ecosystems, poverty, inequality, racism, polarization, and rising authoritarianism. Our paper sets out that young people are increasingly miserable, and the tendencies of some university teaching should be reconsidered when actual transformations are needed to the neoliberal and liberal systems that shape what is considered normal in our social and educational structures, political systems, and our general overconsumption of the biosphere. Miserable pedagogies sets these tendencies in university education into 4 types of miserable pedagogies. The first of these, active contributors, reflects the higher education teaching that actively adds to the misery. This includes courses that teach students to win in the current economic system by actually making things worse. This includes, for example, unlocking knowledge about unsustainably growing the economy. The second miserable pedagogy are those that ignore the issues. This is teaching that carries on, depositing traditional abstract knowledge into the heads of students as if the meta-crisis is not happening at all. Third miserable pedagogy are the overly optimistic. These are pedagogies that offer apparently easy solutions to the system issues of the meta-crisis, like the myths that surround concepts of green growth and approaches such as the Sustainable Development Goals. These are in no way significant enough to resolve even minor aspects of the meta-crisis. Fourth miserable pedagogy are those that describe reality. These are critical pedagogies, and they provide students with an outline of the misery they are facing currently and later in the century, but they have insufficient opportunity for students to develop the broad range of agencies and knowledges that might be useful in actually responding to the meta-crisis. We think there are options beyond these miserable pedagogies, and our paper sets out some of this work through a philosophical concept of Anthropocene intelligence. Anthropocene intelligence aims to help students interconnect with social, natural, and psychological ecosystems. It focuses on the idea of planetary limits and the need to get beyond mastery narratives through critically engaging with non-Western and Indigenous ways of knowing. Anthropocene intelligence recognises that the meta-crisis is also a crisis of meaning for young people, and especially seeks to nurture the agency and worldviews that are needed for what amounts to an absurdly dangerous time on planet Earth. While our model of Anthropocene intelligence draws on a range of ecological and philosophical concepts, the key point we're making is that there are options beyond the miserable pedagogical tendencies in higher education. In particular, we set out the approach taken by Mike in his work with Māori Indigenous communities, in contrast to the misery of pedagogy typically seen in universities. Mike's work with Māori communities sees them working with students and their whānau or families to draw on local wisdom and a collective, meaningful focus to responding to environmental challenges needing community or iwi tribal responses. His approach, outside of universities, has helped build social connections between community members and shown the value of Indigenous forms of knowing and belonging. Mike's example naturally builds the sort of Anthropocene intelligence we advocate for in universities. It's a model for how we can address pedagogy in the meta-crisis and the misery and meaninglessness we routinely deliver to young people. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Introducing Grammarly, like you've never seen before. You're all.
Well, thank you and I'm sure you enjoyed both of our wonderful contributions. We'd now like to invite you to discuss, and to support you in this, we'd love to pop you in breakout rooms. You're going to have about 5 colleagues with you. 4 colleagues with you, getting my mathematics right. And we hope that you enjoy meeting each other, talking about the 2 wonderful presentations that you've just engaged with. And oh, now I have to do more maths, yikes. There we go. And so you'll be assigned automatically, and you'll be in there for about only 8 minutes. So please move around the 5 of you nice and quickly, introduce, have a discussion, and we look forward to seeing you back here. And we've got more for you. So we'll see you soon. Sandra and Ruth, anything to add?
Yes, Sandra, I don't know if you did, but I had a couple of questions that might be quite interesting as provocateurs. One was, what are some of the options in front of us in regards to the meta-crisis? What are some of the serious obstacles, which I think is plenty to talk about in 8 minutes. Okay.
Oh, please forgive my typing. Serious obstacles. I just wanted to get them into the chat so you could take them with you. Okay, we're opening the rooms. Have a great discussion. We'll see you soon. If you're new to Zoom, please, there should be a pop-up that indicates that you can click on this button now and go out to your allocated room. If you have any concerns, please let me know and I'll happily support. Great. And I will start my timer. No. Hi, Rebecca. How are you going?
Sorry, I accidentally clicked the wrong button. I was in group 2. Are you able to put me back?
I will work out how to put you back. Rebecca moved to not joined. Let me see. Room. Oh, I see you there. I don't know how to do this.
I did the same thing too. I'm sorry.
Sarah, what room should
maybe
you
I
be
think I was
Oh,
in.
here we go. I can do that. There's
Oh, button down the
join
bottom.
breakout room in the more thing.
I was in 3. How do
So,
I?
Sarah, I think if you go to the circle with the dots in it down the bottom of your Zoom room, Zoom window, and click on the more and then get to breakout rooms, you should be able to join room.
Yeah. Okay. I'm trying.
I'm so sorry. I don't know
No.
how I move you
That's
without.
my problem.
I can see exactly where you should be.
Join breakout room.
There you go.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Next one, organize. Okay, so we're on to- Hi,
Hello,
Joshua.
my name's Ruth Unsworth. I'm a lecturer at the University of Glasgow, and I'm going to be talking about my paper, Sustainability.
Confused there for a moment. All right. When universities break. Joshua, would you like to be assigned to a room? Yes. Okay, great. I'll assign you to room 1. Is that okay? Perfect. Here you go. Perfect. Welcome back. Thank you very much. I hope your discussion was fabulous and you got to meet some of our wonderful community here and really engaged quickly with our first 2 very fabulous videos of our papers. Right now, we're moving on to our next set of papers. So we have curated, or Ruth and Sandra have curated for you 3 more wonderful presentations, and the authors have prepared some great snapshots for you. The first one is by Ruth Unsworth, and it's called Sustainability as a Mode of Existence and Its Crossing with Education. Sorry, one moment. There we go. And super.
Hello, my name's Ruth Unsworth. I'm a lecturer at the University of Glasgow, and I'm going to be talking about my paper, Sustainability as a Mode of Existence and Its Crossing with Education. The term sustainability has become fractured and opaque, caught in a metaphysical crisis. This paper suggests that our difficulty defining sustainability is not just a problem of terminology. Instead, it reflects a deeper issue: how humans understand our place within the world. To move forward, I argue, we must rethink this relationship. We must rethink the word sustainability, not just as a buzzword, but as a crucial mode of existence. Rather than offering another technical definition of sustainability, I ask a more fundamental question. What if sustainability is not a goal that we are trying to reach, but rather a way of existing in relation to the Earth and to one another? The paper begins by pointing out that sustainability has become a widely used but conceptually fragmented term. Different fields, economics, environmental science, politics, and education, all use the word differently. This fragmentation matters because sustainability is often framed as something that we can manage, measure, or optimize. But the metacrisis that we exist within and the polycrisis that we exist within reveal something deeper. Humans are not separate from the systems that we're trying to manage. Instead, we exist within complex ecological, technological, and social networks. Understanding sustainability therefore requires rethinking our relationship with the world itself. To describe this entanglement, I introduce the concept of the subject. Moving beyond the traditional divide between subject and object, we encounter the subject, a merging of subject and object, describing the tangible entanglement of human and non-human entities. Traditionally, we treat humans as subjects, agents who act, and the world we come to know as objects, things we seek to understand, use, or control. But this separation no longer makes sense in the context of global ecological systems. Objects such as plastics, chemicals, or technologies are not passive materials. They are part of dynamic networks that shape ecosystems, economies, and human behavior, just as ecosystems, economies, and human behavior have shaped them. The idea of the subject highlights that humans and non-humans are mutually entangled participants in shared systems of existence. This paper argues that education plays a critical role in this shift in thinking. Sustainability education, from this perspective, should not simply transfer environmental knowledge or promote predefined solutions. Instead, it should create spaces where students can explore the relationships, tensions, and contradictions within the systems we inhabit. Moments of dissonance, where values, systems, and assumptions collide, can open up possibilities for new ways of thinking and living. From this perspective, authentic transformation doesn't come from easy consensus. It arises from engaging with generative dissonances, the productive friction of our contradictions as we learn to live together as part of the world. So rather than treating sustainability as a fixed destination, the paper invites us to see it differently. Sustainability education, from this perspective, must foster caring attention and kinship-based relations, moving towards an ethics of mutual responsibility rather than human domination of a world. Sustainability then becomes the ongoing question of how we exist together as part of Earth. And education becomes the place where we learn to notice those entanglements, where we learn to question our assumptions, and where we learn to imagine more responsible ways of inhabiting the world. By reconfiguring how we live and learn, we can co-create a world worth inhabiting. The paper argues for embracing our entanglements. Thank you for exploring this mode of existence with me.
Stop. Thank you very much to Ruth. Fantastic. We're going to move on to our second film right now. This one is by Michelle Oriciano. I'm sorry, Michelle. I hope I've got your name okay. Please say it properly for me if I haven't. And the title of your presentation is When Universities Break, Metacrisis. Oh, Kintsugi. Sandra, you said it so much better than me. And the art of crack literacy. Oh, I'm so sorry. Anyway, very excited to share your thinking in this short presentation.
My name is Michelle Cristiano. I'm a lecturer and researcher at the University of Queensland. My paper is called When Universities Break, and it asks what happens when we stop treating institutional crisis as something to fix and start reading it as something to understand. It draws on kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold, to think about what honest repair might look like in higher education. What follows is not a summary of that paper. It's the paper's argument, just made differently. A bowl holds water until it doesn't. The break is not the moment you remember. It is the sound just before, when the clay already knows. They painted over the crack in the ceiling twice. They restructured, they strategized, they call it transformation, when they were actually survival. They asked, who failed? And the answer was always a person, never a pattern. But what if the crack is not the problem? What if it is the first honest thing the institution has said in years? There is a crisis beneath the crisis beneath the crisis. Each solution tightening the knot it was designed to loosen. The metacrisis is not the sum of our problems. It is the moment we notice that the solving is the source. What if the break is trying to say something the institution has no vocabulary for? Kintsugi, to mend with gold, to read the fracture before reaching for the glue. But reading takes time. The arashi lacquer that binds the gold is made from tree sap. It needs weeks to cure, weeks. Not a strategic plan, not a task force, not a semester. Weeks of sitting with the fragments, learning their edges, understanding where the stress was carried long before the breaking came. Ma, the space between, not emptiness, presence that has not yet declared itself. The pause before the next sentence, the repair that cannot be rushed because the material refuses. And the gold is not decoration. It is the thing you could have spent elsewhere, the budget line that says we stayed, when staying was not efficient. The mending left visible, the seam that refuses to disappear. Paint is cheap. Paint says nothing happened here. Gold says something happened here and we did not look away. And here's what the gold reveals when the light catches it differently. The crack was never yours. It was fired into the clay from the beginning. The impossible demand to be critical and compliant, to know everything and question nothing, to care deeply and produce endlessly, to hold all the water in the world in a single way of knowing. No bowl could hold that. No person should have to do that. The bowl, repaired, does not pretend to be unbroken. It holds water, it serves tea, it participates in daily ritual. But now it carries something else, the visible record of having been attended to. Not restored, not optimized, not made efficient, attended to. The beauty is not in the gold. The beauty is that someone thought the breaking was worth the gold. My paper calls this crack literacy, the capacity to read institutional breaking not as failure, but as information. Not to fix what's broken, but to understand what the breaking is trying to tell us. The question I want to leave you with is this. What would it cost your institution to stop painting over the cracks?
Terrible. I hate how YouTube does that. What a lovely question to take into our discussion, but we have one more gem for you before we go. We are about to hear from Andrei Sava, who is presenting her paper called Imaginaries of Eco-Rationality, Whirling Encounters and Effective Archives. Thank you, Andrei. Sorry.
Hello, my name is Andrei, and together we will probe imaginaries of eco-relationality amid the turbulent times we live. Extreme weather events, species extinction, increased pollution, and a warming planet, along wars and refuge, testify to multiple crises. Humanity has become a geological force altering planetary conditions, whilst notions of a universal abstract human have been challenged by the geohistorical formation of ecologies of power, capital, and nature. This contribution attends to the connectedness of multiple crises and the complexity needed to address them by probing their marks, the etchings of the metacrisis. The mindset of modernity and enlightenment and the transhistorical continuity of its violences, such as colonialism, imperialism, capitalism, industrialism, scientism, species, are problematized in their relationality with metacrisis and at the intersections of climate change and education. The orientation and ethos of inquiry transcend technoscientific and economist approaches. Transoceanic thinking and Edward Gleason's notion of whirling encounters, along an affective approach to archives inspired by Astrida Neimanis and Lydia Caprera, are mobilized. Archives of intimacy and feeling honor pre-modern ways of life through artifacts, objects, sites. The intimate relationality of peoples and land is animated without downplaying violences, and a pedagogy for beyond the metacrisis is unfolded in an effort to problematize and inspire. Modernity's assumptions of objectivity and mastery form part of violences and shape the metacrisis. Modernity's meta-theories and modern science focus, as well as economic powers, are inextricably linked with the disenchantment of the world, the extirpation of animism, and the discernment of meaningful connection. Peoples and nature have been thinkified, othered, reduced, commodified. Settler colonialism transformed ecosystems, whereas psychocultural blocking formed through industrialization. The dominance of man as a bioeconomic subject ruling all, and of anthropos as the exceptional of all species, highlights the excess at the heart of the vision of the world as resource and the desire to destroy everything. The mindset of development and extraction lies at the heart of climate change and problematizes human-centric political and justice thinking. Depoliticized and techno-economy spaces that erase violences are being countered by ethico-political approaches. From the commodification of the planet and the colonization of fertility to the unbearable heaviness of climate change, to consumerism in its relation with the carbon sink appropriation and the overarching collective exhaustion, such scholarship problematizes humanity as exclusionary and privileged. Enlightenment's mindset of progress is unfolded in multiple and interconnected crises. Education has become the machine of learning. Domestication, standardization, and datafication are based on the reproduction of the model of the fittest who is to survive. The etchings of the meta-crisis at the intersections of climate change and education stress the waning faith to modernity. An education beyond an outcomes-based and market-driven mindset and beyond objects of study can be mobilized by probing intergenerational relationalities and subjectivities. Whirling encounters suggest a wandering and encountering systems of violence, domination, and control. Affective archives transcend archives as data and instead highlight the intensities of affect. An approach that takes seriously and respectfully a correlation of spirituality and an ethics and politics of interdependence is evoked through a form of historical storytelling, a wandering through archives of feeling and affective intimacy. Such an approach is queried in Southeast Mediterranean in its plurality and connection with the planetary, Mediterraneans. A wandering in the Neolithic settlement of Hierokitia, querying ways of living intimately connected with land and an ethos of subsistence honoring seasonal abundance and cyclical time, encounters the modern industrial world and the way coal was utilized for imperial expansion, turning fossil fuels into a major force in climate change. A pedagogy for beyond the metacrisis unfolds, stressing the embodied and embedded, the poetic and philosophical. Such pedagogy may combine walking with psychogeography and visual pedagogy, as well as a combination of ethnographic, anthropological, and archaeological elements. This is a process that animates rhizomatic connections and their transformational potentials, inviting you to problematize grand theories and dominant modes and imagine possibilities, reminding us that we live the very same world we are trying to learn about from a distance through dominant modes of education. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much to, one second. Thank you very much to Ruth, Michelle, and Andre. What a great collection. Thank you for curating, Ruth and Sandra. We are now open for another discussion. So I invite you to hold tight, click your button when the opportunity comes up, and enjoy discussing with another group. We're putting you into a new group today. So quick introductions and then enjoy the conversation. I think we've had some wonderful provocations from our videos. But Ruth and Sandra, anything to add here? Sandra's good.
Sandra? Well, I loved those three. They were really wonderful. And what struck me was that first question, what would it take for your institution to stop painting over the cracks? What a great question. What does it mean for humanity to be a geological force? Wow. And yes, the last, I think those are great questions to get cracking with.
Great. Well, let's open the rooms, and we hope you enjoy. Please stay here if you've got any questions, and I hope to be able to support you. Well, welcome back, and I'm confident that your discussions were fabulous. And I'm very excited to move us into the next part of our curated presentation today. And there are 3 more fabulous short videos to go, so hold tight. The first one that we're going to engage with is from Thomas Everth. So thanks, Thomas, you're here. I've seen you. Great. His is called Towards Sorry, I've been practicing this, Towards a Throughtopian Metacrisis Curriculum. And we look forward to engaging with your very special recording, Thomas. Thank you for all the efforts you've gone to present today.
The conditions of modernity and capitalism have resulted in the emergence of an exponentially growing, self-organizing, socio-economic moloch that is consuming planetary and human resources. Consequently, we live on the vertical cliff face of an unsustainable growth trajectory generated by accelerating competition for resources, power, and monetary wealth. The moloch is an emergent Kantian whole, an assemblage that territorializes human attention and the flows of matter and money around the planet. It is coding and directs humans to accelerate and expand its own dynamics. In its wake, the moloch's externalities are producing a spiraling polycrisis of consequences, polluting the ecosystem, setting the planet on a dystopian trajectory of heating, and turning our oceans acidic. Caught in the dynamism of the moloch, human actions become acratic, denialist, cognitively dissonant, and deprived of meaning. There seems to be no obvious way to stop the spiraling madness. We're entering a phase of profound instability. In a nutshell, this is the metacrisis. For educators, the situation seems dire. How can we prepare our children for the situation they have been thrown into? Stories of utopian dreams and dystopian nightmares are both unhelpful. Major utopian ideals often escape into a Goldilocks solar-powered sustainable future are unrealistic at the moment at best. Historically, grand utopias, as Margaret Atwood contends, were always dialectically bound to dystopian consequences of their own. Wallowing in dystopian laments is equally unhelpful. It leads to depression, cynicism, and fear, which arguably is a key driver of all evil in this world, the generator of witch hunts, wars, and genocides. But there's a third path, one that deliberately avoids falling for utopian illusions and descends into utopian disempowerment. It is a path of acceptance of reality and its inevitable consequences and the building of resilience for the times to come. It is Rupert Read's Throughtopian. In my paper, I trace steps towards a Throughtopian metacrisis curriculum. In 2017, Rupert Read responded to the metacrisis dilemma with a pragmatic realization. The consequences of the metacrisis are by now unavoidable. We have already entered what will be a long planetary emergency lasting probably centuries at least. Read said, we need ways of seeing, understanding, inhabiting, and creating what will be needed for the very long haul. Visioning the politics and the ecology of getting through. As Read phrased it, we're entering a time of Throughutopia, a time where visions of a world saved cannot remain static, but must become dynamic, adapt to the growing dystopian realities, and become continuously remade. I personally see minor utopian strategies as building blocks for a utopian curriculum that can diffuse the major dominant context of the model. Building on the work of Deleuze and Guattari, Katz emphasized minor theory and argued that minor theory creates an interstice in the dominant major contexts and tears at the confines of major theory, pushing its limits to provoke a minor escape, rupture, a tension, out of which something else might happen. The major utopian response to the situation is an appeal to global solutions, a society-wide programmatic system change at a ground scale. However, I argue that hoping for the materialization of a major utopian solution is not only futile, but also disempowering. The Moloch will likely thrive on ground utopias and direct their enactment to grow its own powers. The strategy that I propose for the deterritorialization and disempowerment of Moloch for the utopian times is a minorization of the problems, a refocusing on the minor contexts and relationships, from family to community to local place-based politics, and the molecular tapestry within which we live and must get through, and within which solutions, I believe, can emerge. Entering a utopian stance, I believe, is a new beginning. The Moloch emerged from the collective actions and reactions of billions of people, and something different can emerge in its place if we educate the conditions for that into being. In my paper, I point to some key educational strategies. I contend that we already possess much of the educational, theoretical and practical toolset to enact such strategy, but need to employ this deliberately now to form a utopian curriculum that defies Moloch and guides us and the next generation through. I focus on the following strategic areas for such a curriculum: philosophy of existence, purpose, meaning in and of life; resilience building through nature connectedness; place-based contexts and community building; learning from indigenous cultures and wisdoms; eco-fiction and environmental storytelling; and eventually meeting the Moloch and understanding the poly and meta-crisis. And I purposefully put this last because students should become prepared to meet the Moloch dynamics in its engulfingness at our current time. The rising instability in the world presents an opportunity for change and an obligation to become involved, because small actions matter most when systems are out of balance. Generating utopian curricula will be a continual process, not an end point, but the framework of reference we can produce now will likely endure. Foremost, education must generate and amplify vision and action, again and again, in a recursive spiral to get us through. This will not be accomplished through imaginations of ground utopias, but through a persistent focus on the next beautiful day, the next step in the near field of our gaze, while enacting minor utopian acts of love and care for the relationships that matter in our direct lives. Then, eventually, Moloch might turn out of minds to feast on, and we might just get through.
Thank you, Thomas. We'll move to our next presentation and look forward to having a bit of time to discuss at the end. So I'm really pleased to present to you Chiara's presentation, Chiara Limandri. It's called Teaching the Uncanny, a Dark Pedagogy for Climate Disruptions.
Hi everyone, my name is Chiara Limandri and I'm the author of Teaching the Uncanny, a Dark Pedagogy for Climate Disruption for the special issue on Metacrisis. I'm currently, as you can tell, in a garden. It's the Philosophy in the Wild Garden at the University of Galway, because I'm here doing the first trial of Dark Pedagogy, which is being led with the help of Dr. Lucy Elvis and Dr. Michela Dianetti. My article actually deals with the meta-crisis in different ways. First of all, it conceives the ecological and climate breakdowns as exemplifying the meta-crisis and not constituting just a part of it, because besides material effects, physical effects, which are definitely clear for all of us, dark pedagogy thinks that these material effects actually are underpinning some more structural issues which pertain to the symbolic dimension. For this reason, dark pedagogy tries to address these structural issues by focusing both on dark topics, that's why the name, and also on dark feelings. Before doing that, the article tries to explore more deeply some of the most common responses to the metacrisis. So it deals with business as usual, denial, some forms of climate activism, and it does this by trying to find a common structure behind them. And in particular, I've reflected on the structure of disavowal as psychoanalysis presented it, which is well explained by Octave Mannoni in the well-known formula of "I know very well, but nonetheless." And disavowal is usually a structure in which we know the issue, but we keep acting as if it's not existing, or in forms of like it can also take more extreme forms, for example in denial. And the paper also argues that some forms of climate activism actually share the same structure by focusing just on one aspect, on one problem of the climate crisis, and not trying to account for a more complex and more broad vision of the issue. Dark pedagogy then proposes two possible solutions to this. One is more theoretical, and it's cosmic pessimism, and the other is a more practical solution, which is entropic pessimism. It then explores one specific embodiment of both cosmic and entropic pessimism, which is in Giacomo Leopardi's reflection, especially in one of his unfinished hymns. It's called To Ahriman. And later the article tries to explore more in depth the feelings evoked by trying to account for this issue, trying to respond to these issues by using Freudian and Lacanian psychoanalysis, and especially Lacan's reflection on anguish and the uncanny, the Freudian uncanny. This is because although usually psychologists and psychoanalysis has considered negative effects as only individual or just issues to be resolved, Lacanian and Freudian psychoanalysis instead consider negative emotions as very important, because they are actually pointing to a social issue and to a real dimension of these issues, which cannot be actually simplistically resolved. So it's offering also a different paradigm to think about these negative effects too. In conclusion, dark pedagogy tries to learn the lesson made by Freud and Lacan by highlighting both the educator or the teacher side of these issues, because sometimes we tend to evade these feelings too and try to propose and to account for more positive or like reconciliatory accounts of the issues, and also to be more aware and be more sensitive to the feelings provoked and the unresolved dimension of the ecological and climate crisis.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Chiara. We have one more presentation in our fabulous set this afternoon, and this one is from Karen Sieri. I'm sorry, Karen, and Yin Parodies. Really lovely to see you here with us, Karen. Despite everything going on for you, well done. And the title of this presentation is Growing Out of the Modernity Metacrisis, a Sensing Heuristic for Seeding Alternative Futures.
We're not facing a collection of crises. We're facing a crisis of modernity itself. The metacrisis is not just ecological, economic, or spiritual. It's a crisis in how we belong, know, and become. And many of our proposed solutions are still shaped by the same patterns of thought that created the problem. Modernity privileges separateness, the individual human over the whole. Straight lines, progress, growth, products, and endpoints. Abstraction, analysis detached from body, place, and relation. These patterns organise our institutions, our education systems, our activism, and personal lives. We try to fix uncertainty with more measurement and analysis. We try to fix poor results with more simplistic compliance. We try to fix disconnection with positivity, denial, and blame. But if the patterns don't change, the crisis continues, even inside reform. The sensing seed is a heuristic for interrupting these patterns in real time. It's a device for sensitizing us to the dominant aesthetic of modernity, alongside possible alternatives. In this way, the sensing seed is supporting us to practice an embodied ethics of care. It invites us and reminds us to shift. Separateness to holistic. Who or what have we excluded? We know we're not separate parts, but irreducible wholes within living systems. Straight lines to waves. What if we valued process and relationship as much as tasks and products? What if transformation is spiral and energetic? Abstraction to perceiving. What if knowledge is not only conceptual, but somatic, relational, embodied? There are also secondary patterns which, combined, create blended palettes. Hierarchical to egalitarian. What if structures were not designed for power over, extraction, competition, and blame, but with respect, responsibility, and care for co-liberation and co-benefit? Universalizing to contextualizing. What if we valued not just conformity, correctness, perfection, and standardization, but welcomed diversity, paradox, creativity, improvisation, and nuance? Impersonal to expressive. What if relationships are not numb, invulnerable, and transactional, but loving, meaningful, authentic, felt, and alive? Modern education trains us in abstraction and management, and pursuing environmental education through that frame is insufficient. The frame itself requires transformation. Rehabilitating our senses, recognizing patterns of relational belonging, co-becoming, and embodied ways of knowing can help us disrupt business as usual and discern ethical responses moment by moment. So, if modernity is the soil from which the meta-crisis grows, can we instead seek a different loam in which to grow? And what could our education and practice look like if we did?
Women over 40 who've been stuck at the same.
Thank you very much to Karen and Yin. Fabulous presentation. Thank you to Thomas, Kiara, Karen and Yin. Really pleased that you've given us the opportunity to engage with your ideas. One last little bit from me today is that these videos have been curated into a playlist for your future enjoyment. And now you have the link. You can share that with others across our socials. So I hope that you do that. And over to you, Sandra and Ruth, to manage our final discussion.
Sandra, I'm jumping in, but you jump in yourself whenever you would like to. So in this final discussion, what we wanted to talk about was education. So these last three papers are really focusing on curriculum, whether it be a Throughotopian one or a Sensing Seed one or Chiara's dark pedagogies curriculum. So we wanted to instead of going into groups this time, we were going to sort of throw it open to the group as a whole and see if anyone had any passionate things that they wanted to say about education.
And I think we've got 1 minute to do that in. Have we, Peter? Thank you. What about hearing from Karen or Thomas? And I don't know if Kiara is here. I think it's the middle of the night for her. But over to Karen or Thomas, perhaps. No?
Just want to say thank you again for everybody here, for the wonderful work you've done, Ruth, Sandra, Peter, to bring this all together. Thank you so much. I've spoken a lot on the video, so I probably don't need to say so much anymore, other than to say that when I made the video, the current situation was just about to blow up, but of course now it's blown up out of all proportions. And so I think pushing beyond the meta-crisis is extremely important. And it's like we're in a cathartic moment. It's like what was said in the discussion also on the broken pot, the wonderful broken pot video we saw before. We were focusing on the cracks that are already there. And I think the current situation is doing just that. It's focusing on all the cracks that have been brewing for all of us in plain sight or not in plain sight, but and they become plainly visible and painful at the moment. And I think so, like in medicine, when things go kind of wrong, you come through this cathartic moment, and after which hopefully you'll get better or you die. And it feels like we're in this cathartic moment at the moment that is belonging to this, going beyond the meta-crisis. We have to go through cathartic, I think, and that's probably beyond us. I mean, above us. Yeah.
Thanks, Thomas. That's yeah, absolutely. Since we started this project, we had no idea that Donald Trump would get back in power and that Israel would have quite as dominating an effect in the Middle East. So yeah, that's certainly one of the cracks that need to be really clearly addressed and examined. And I think actually that, to me, that came out so strongly in just about everybody's paper, is this idea about really facing up to what's actually happening and not painting over it, not covering it over or just doing business as usual as though there's nothing wrong. But unfortunately, modernity has been very, very good at failing to notice the failure. So thus far, we are just regurgitating the same old, same old. So I wondered if anyone else had anything that they would like to say about education and not doing it the same old, before we tie up. Karen, obviously, you did.
Yeah, I guess my sensing seed came out of trying to have, imagine alternatives to business as usual amongst practitioners who, weren't philosophers or theorists. So trying to create a language and something easy to remember to remind us in our moment by moment.
Yeah, the sensing seed links a bit to the adjacent possible as things emerge in the world. What is now possible it has to be sensed, and I think it's important for educators to be aware of what else is possible besides the curriculum pathway that we always have done. And there's almost so much more if we just open up our mind towards it, I think.
Absolutely. And I think that, I work in the Northern Territory where we have, modernity rubbing up, right up, or overshadowing often First Nations perspectives, and just wanting to create a space for alternative ontologies and alternative practices so that they can belong in the same conversation, and that we can see that, and I can see in my own cultural heritage maybe things that might fit in those same spaces. So yeah, creating zones of exploration.
This morning I was teaching a 3-hour lesson on food design, looking at the pollution of Lake Ormapere in the north. And I'm very aware when I write these lessons that I'm not asking permission from anyone to cover particular ground. So for some years now, I've just bravely moved in a progressive and honest direction, and I'm aware that it can be quite confronting for some of the students. But so long as we invite them to create or design an intervention and focus on speculative design where they might be able to be creative and dream and push the envelope, then I'm just still waiting for someone to tap me on the shoulder. But everybody's just too busy. So I carry on, and I think they're probably lucky to have us, really. So I'm just encouraging everyone to be courageous.
I might step in there, and I'm so sorry to do this, Sandra and Ruth, but our time has come, and I just wanted to acknowledge Mary has also written in this special issue, and I've popped the link to her contribution in the chat. So thank you so much to our fabulous community here. We are not a formal community. We come together to celebrate fabulous moments like this. Please join me in thanking Ruth and Sandra as our guest special issue editors, all of our fantastic audiences, especially those who went to the effort to share so provocatively and beautifully their research with us today. And thank you to our community, our reviewers, of course, but also our broader community. It's great that we get to be together and learn together in these really challenging times. And that for me is a heart way forward. So lovely to see you here today, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Bye. And read all the other texts. They're fantastic.